Ah, you don't see that too often. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Our topic tonight are cool limited edition / custom orders. But before we get into that, take a look at this photo that Grant sent me on my Facebook page. We've got Randy Rhoads here rocking a really strange looking Les Paul. Now, if you've been watching my show, you know that's a Gibson L5S. It's the solid body version of an L5. We've documented one on the show, and we've talked about these things multiple times, but I have never, ever seen somebody rocking one of these things out on stage the way Randy is. That makes the guitar way cooler in my opinion now. But speaking of cool guitars, there's a new model on Sweetwater's website. It's listed as the Gibson Custom Shop SG Custom Electric Guitar Silverburst. However, just from this photo, you can tell there's something going on here. Look at these inlays. It's got the Trini Lopez style. We also saw them on the 90 series in the late 80s, on the V, E, and SG models. But these things have been making a comeback a lot on custom orders because people learn about them along the internet and then they want to incorporate them. But this time we have a Silverburst SG Custom. Now in this photo, we've got a little bit of a light reflection here. I would assume in person that will still have the black on the edge and it's not bleeding out the silver. But what's also fascinating is this is a 68 style SG. Gibson doesn't currently offer this within the custom shop outside of custom orders. They've got the regular 61 style that has this pickguard and pickup rings, also in the traditional custom with the white finish and Maestro Vibrola, as well as a 64 style standard. But you scroll through these and you don't see anything about 68 SGs. In fact, even if you step out of the custom shop and go to Gibson USA production level, you pretty much just have 61 styles everywhere, and a couple of juniors and basses thrown in here. But here is where you could find a 68 style, but it's not necessarily called that. The closest you could get to this guitar would be the old Jimi Hendrix, now out of production, Reissue, or the Captain Kirk Douglas SGs. So that's pretty much everything this has going for it. A different pickguard style and a unique fretboard option, as well as a color you don't see every day because it's also bursted on the back, it's on the neck, it's the headstock. I really wanted to document this, and I came close to buying it, but ultimately I decided let's just leave this rock or not, because to me, the most applicable model that this would be based off of would be the regular SG Custom. Again, keep in mind it typically only has the half guard, but usually people view this as the superior version as opposed to the Batwing, at least in the vintage market. When it comes to modern day examples, it doesn't matter as much. So let's say the inlays are a $500 premium and the finish is a $1,000 premium, and we'll give them a $200 premium for the different pickguard. So that adds up to about $6,500, but they must be charging even a little bit more after that. But speaking of cool guitars, look at this one that's over in Japan. I found it on eBay through one of those guitar brokers. If you don't understand how that works, you can check out this episode for a full rundown. But essentially, there's guys that live in Japan that scour shops that don't list internationally, and they'll steal their photos from the ads and put them on eBay. And there's multiple of these people doing this, so that's why sometimes you see the same guitar listed multiple times. It's completely legit. If you order it from them, you'll either get the guitar or you'll get a refund because it's already sold. And if you know how to buy things out of Japan yourself, you find yourself really liking these brokers because they let you know of cool things. I've wanted a Green Burst Les Paul Custom for quite some time because I think it's just a great combination, especially when it's darker. We just talked about this in a Rock or Not episode not too long ago. It's a great alien green burst finish. And we have multiple photos to verify its existence. But not only is it the awesome finish, look at our inlays. It's the Super 400 style going all the way up and down the neck with the ebony fretboard. I mean, sure, they could have went even crazier putting abalone inlay on it, but hey, it's pretty traditional as far as everything else goes. It looks like our serial number dates it to 2022, so it's fairly new, so we've got the ebony. And yes, we do indeed have the burst on the back of the headstock and the neck. And oh man, this thing is just awesome. I love it. And that's why I bought it. We'll see this in a review and documentation episode soon. Continuing on with our guitar brokers, letting us know about cool things. Look at this 2005 59 reissue, listed as Quilt Gloss Blue Burst, but this broker is listing it for a little over $9,000. That's just such an insane quilt top. It's one of those very rigid 3D tops. Now, usually the downfall to the tops that look like this is they don't have a lot of movement to them, but this one looks like it might still have it between the veins of the wood. Kind of reminds me of the Goryo Yuto signature, but in a double stain fashion and a little bit darker, because it's like a really faded out blue, kind of a sandy color in the center before you get to the darker hues. Custom color R9s are always fun if you like the slightly quirkier guitars. And it looks like the back is a dark blue finish as well, although it kind of appears black in these photos. However, I can't actually see her serial number on there, so it might actually be a black ink stamp serial that you have to get in the light just a view. But if that's too much for you, just on Reverb today, this thing popped up in Wooster, Ohio, Nate's Gear Locker, a Lay's guitar shop conversion. So if you don't know Lay's, they're a shop in Ohio. They're very well known for repair and restoration work. I haven't personally seen any of their stuff in hand, but I've only heard good things, so I occasionally refer people to them if they're like, hey, who's semi-what affordable and does a good job? But take a look at this. So we've got a Gibson Les Paul, and it looks very similar, doesn't it? We've got quiltiness, and it's blue, not quite the same burst color, but having the double cream pickups and cream everything else works great. That almost looks like an ebony fretboard, although it's probably just a dark rosewood. Then you look to the back, and it's no longer translucent. It's a solid finish in a pelham bluish hue. But yep, that was definitely a refinish because everything has been obscured back here, but you can just barely make out your serial number. Looks like he changed our tuners after the refin job. But that thing's looking pretty cool, but at the same time, a little bit fishy. So it's a good thing it was a conversion, right? Because it helps explain some stuff like this. That would look a little bit jarring if you just thought it was an original Gibson. But what shocked me is when I read the description. One-of-a-kind Les Paul Jr. conversion. Wow. I've seen vintage conversions like that before, but to take a modern day one, I would imagine it would cost somewhere between $2,500 to $3,500 for them to do that. So it'd be about $1,000 for the guitar if you buy a really beat up one and then just have them convert everything. Probably about how he got to his price right there. I'm just basing that off of what I know Historic Makeovers charges for their basic package, refinish, and new fretboard type stuff. Or if you don't want to wait, just buy this on Reverb. But continuing our journey, we've got Jimi's Vintage Music. It's a shop down in Florida. I've bought a few guitars from this guy. So it was listed as a 1987 Gibson Les Paul Custom White Super Rare Tremolo near mint condition. And $5,000. That doesn't seem too bad if it is what it says. So I click on the photo and there it is. Look at that massive trem system on here. That actually is factory equipment original from Gibson. You probably have just never seen it before. It's called the Pro Tune Vibrola. I actually have a spare one of these in my parts collection. Typically, you only see them around 1984, maybe in early 85 if you're really stretching it. The thing to know about these is the fact that they are top mounted. They're not routed out like a Kaler, so you could convert this back to a regular stop bar tailpiece. That's why you typically don't see these things. So for my collection, I've been kind of looking for a factory original one. However, what kind of threw me off on this one is the fact that the lock nut is in the center, and typically these did not have a lock nut. So I actually contacted Randy Leonard, an employee of Gibson at the time, who put these on guitars, and he said that system didn't usually have a lock nut. So somebody probably added that after the fact, or this whole system was bought aftermarket and put on the guitar. Because if you look back here, the serial number is to 1987, and that's why I wanted to check with them, because it was a little bit later than you normally see it, but still within the realm of possibility. But then Randy pointed something out to me. If you want to adjust that truss rod, you're probably going to have to remove your lock nut system because it's blocking your adjustment. So, unfortunately, I don't believe that's exactly what I was looking for, but if you're looking for a really clean 87 white custom, keep in mind, you can remove that. You might have some scarring to the top from where it was sitting, maybe some discolorations in the finish, but if you can live with a lock nut on your guitar and convert that to standard, if the condition lines up, that's probably still worth it. But hey, what's going on with this L5S? Always love seeing how people modify these things. So we've got a nice flamey 3-piece top, but then I like their new custom pickguard. They made it out of maple, just like the rest of the guitar. They have the multiply binding, but it looks like they didn't use nitro on that, probably some sort of a poly so it didn't age, which likely wasn't all that apparent at first, but they must have had some sort of a celluloid pickguard on this at first. That's why they took it off and replaced it. I appreciate that they took the time to try to match the body contours as best as they could. And then they've replaced our bridge pickup, but for the most part, seems to still be functional, even though your toggle switch is very crowded there. How are you going to switch it to the neck pickup? There must just be enough clearance. But then the headstock is beautifully aged, still has the original tuners, nice. Super fancy fretboard, and you get an anvil flight case. How much are they asking? Ooh, $6,500. I don't see any mention of what pickup was put in the bridge, but it's pretty nice. It's kind of a cool 335. Kind of reminds me of the trans black that we could see on the new Supreme models. Hopefully it's a little bit darker. This looks more like a translucent gray, but that kind of works on semi-hollows, and it could just be because there's a bunch of bright sun. There's kind of a rare ES-333. They're probably going, what, 333? What is that? It's kind kinda like a 335. If I remember correctly, the construction's pretty much the same. They just slightly stripped it down, like you don't get the Gibson mother of pearl logo. They have an access control plate on the back, which makes it easier for Gibson to wire them up. They still have binding, so they're fancy, but not over the top. But the world's most famous ES-333 is the Tom DeLonge signature, which you can learn all about in this episode. But to wrap things up tonight, I've always wanted to see this, a Gibson Firebird X. However, if you watch my show, you know I've documented both of the main colors of the Firebird X, so that's not why I'm sharing it here. I mean, it was $1,600, which was pretty fair, but usually with a price tag like that, there's gonna be some issues. So everything looks okay on the surface. It's for sale by a reputable dealer, Sam Ash, but then you get to the headstock. Oh, those aren't the right tuners. Those are regular tuners. So then I started to get really excited because the Firebird X is actually a surprisingly good guitar. I don't care if you like the effects or not. There are a few really good tones out of there, but if you like something more basic, you always have the option to rip all the guts out of it and put standard electronics in it, and that's what somebody did here. So you just get flamed fretboard, slightly melted non-reverse Firebird guitar shape with all the other cool stuff. Even though the body looks weird, it's incredibly comfortable. So it did not surprise me one bit when that sold relatively quickly. Alright, Troglodytes, I think that's enough fun for tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.